Usually, when we talk about engineering, there is this expectation of absolute precision, like, architecture or medicine.
Right, yeah. It's very exact.
Exactly. You look at the blueprint of a bridge or an X-ray of a broken arm, and the expert can just point at that jagged white line and say, well, there it is. That's exactly what happened.
Because it's binary. I mean, the bridge holds the weight or it just doesn't. The bone is broken or it's intact. And we naturally gravitate toward that kind of clarity because it's comforting. We really like the world to be visible and, easily categorized.
We do. But then you step into the world of pop culture and specifically hit music, and suddenly that X-ray machine is just completely useless. You're looking at a landscape that's entirely murky.
Oh, completely.
You can't just reverse engineer a cultural phenomenon in a lab.
Yeah.
Like you can't bottle virality, or, well, at least that's the conventional wisdom, until a song comes along that completely rewires the global consciousness almost overnight.
Yeah, and it really forces us to ask if maybe there actually is a formula hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. So welcome to another deep dive into the source material. Because today, whether you're like scrolling through TikTok right now, sitting in traffic, or just catching up on the charts, you have absolutely, unequivocally heard the shimmering 1980s roller rink groove of Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso.
I mean, it has been practically impossible to avoid. We're looking at a track that didn't just climb the charts, it saturated the atmosphere. It became the default background music of an entire season.
It really did. And our mission today isn't just to play a pop hit or talk about how catchy that bass line is. We're going to unpack the actual anatomy of this cultural monolith.
Right. We're really getting into the mechanics of it.
Yeah. We're going to explore how a song that was famously written in just 20 minutes in the remote French countryside of all places somehow sparked a viral global grammar debate.
Which is still so funny to me.
I know, right? And we'll see how it ignited a massive vintage fashion revival and how it completely conquered the globe to become the undeniable, undisputed song of the summer.
What's really fascinating here is the sheer number of cultural threads this one track managed to pull together. We're going to look closely at the lyrical metaphors of femininity and power, which is a huge part of the focus today.
Oh, definitely. The lyrics are doing so much heavy lifting.
Absolutely. We'll break down the underlying musical mechanics, everything from the economics of splice sample loops to the specific architecture of the new disco subgenre. And we'll analyze the visual storytelling that shifted Carpenter's public persona from a trendy Y2K aesthetic directly into this untouchable, classic, mid-century Hollywood glamour.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I want to start by setting the scene because the origin story of Espresso sounds more like an indie film retreat than a corporate pop music factory.
Nancy does.
The timeline is July 2023. Sabrina Carpenter had just finished playing a massive high-energy concert at the Zenith Paris. Now, normally you'd expect a rising pop star to, I don't know, hit the Parisian clubs afterward, or immediately board a flight back to the industry hubs in LA or London.
Right, back to the grind.
Exactly. But instead, she retreats to a tiny, incredibly quiet French village called Chaillot. She ends up at a place called Flow Studios.
It's such a striking juxtaposition, isn't it? You have this artist stepping off a massive stadium stage surrounded by thousands of screaming fans, and she immediately pivots into the quiet, isolated, rural French countryside.
It's like a total sensory reset.
Yeah, it strips away all the noise of the industry. And she wasn't alone. She was there with a very specific, trusted group of collaborators, producer Julian Bonetta and co-writers Amy Allen and Steph Jones.
A really solid crew.
Very much so. And according to Bonetta's accounts at the session, they weren't even sitting down with the intense, high-pressure goal of writing a global smash hit to anchor an album cycle. They were literally just hanging out, having coffee.
Which is hilariously on the nose for a song called Espresso.
Right. It really is. But it speaks to the environment they cultivated. Bonetta mentioned that Sabrina has this mental Rolodex of song ideas and titles just waiting to be deployed.
I love that concept.
Yeah. Modern pop artists often work this way. They aren't just waiting for a magical muse to strike them in the studio. They're constantly collecting phrases, concepts, and hooks on their phones over months or even years.
So they're just banking ideas constantly.
Exactly. So they were hanging out in Thailand, the vibe was super relaxed, and Sabrina knew she wanted to write something fun, something that just didn't take itself too seriously. So Bonetta pulled up some chords on his equipment, found a guitar loop, manipulated those chords, and laid down a custom bass line.
Just setting the mood.
Right. And once that specific groove was established in the room, the writing session basically went supernova.
Supernova is the only word for it, honestly. Bonetta is quoted in the sources saying that the initial explosion of inspiration took only 20 minutes.
Which is just wild.
20 minutes. He said the melody and the lyrics just flowed out of them in this rapid-fire, chaotic jam session.
Yeah.
They were just bouncing off each other in real time.
Pure flow state.
Yeah, like Sabrina would sing a line, Amy would pick up the rhyme, Steph would twist the melody, and Bunetta's throwing in a kick or a snare drum to keep the momentum going. He literally said they threw the songwriting process handbook out the window.
They really just caught a wave.
They caught a wave of pure synergy, wrote it to the end of the track, looked at each other, and basically said, well, let's record it.
It's an incredible anecdote for pop mythology. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of how art is consumed and judged, it raises a really interesting point.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, when the general public hears that a massive, record-breaking hit was written in 20 minutes, there's often this knee-jerk reaction to dismiss it. People assume that if it was created that fast, it must be frivolous, disposable, or just a stroke of dumb luck.
Because they equate time spent with inherent value.
Exactly.
I see that all the time, and it drives me crazy. It's like that old story about the sketch artist in the park.
Oh, the portrait one.
Yeah. You sit down, and the artist draws an absolutely perfect, breathtaking portrait of you in 5 minutes. They hand it to you and say, that'll be $5,000. And you're outraged. You say, why am I paying you $5,000 for 5 minutes of work?
And the punchline is?
The artist just looks at you and says, it took me 5 minutes to draw it, but it took me 10 years of experience to know exactly where to put the lines.
That's the exact dynamic at play here. The 20 minutes of vocalizing and writing lyrics in that French studio is just the tip of the iceberg. It's resting on a massive, unseen foundation of musical intuition, thousands of hours of prior writing sessions, and a deeply ingrained understanding of pop mechanics.
Right. They didn't just walk in off the street.
No, not at all. Julian Bunetta explicitly noted this in his interviews. He wanted to make it very clear that while the core idea materialized incredibly fast, everyone in that room is a master of their craft. He said, every syllable and sound is intentional to make you feel a certain way. It's not a cheap toy which is fun to play with, but breaks straight away.
The more you listen, the more you hear its nuances.
Exactly. And the process didn't just end with that raw acoustic demo in France. They took the track back to the States, specifically to the Perch in Calabasas and the Nest in Nashville, to meticulously polish and finalize the production.
So let's dig into those nuances Bunetta mentioned, specifically the musical mechanics, because the foundation of this track isn't just a guy strumming an acoustic guitar. You mentioned a guitar loop earlier. And I think people assume that when a top-tier pop star makes a song, every single instrument is recorded live in a multi-million-dollar room.
Yeah, a full backing band and everything.
Right. But that is not what happened here.
Not at all. Bunetta actually utilized Splice. For anyone unfamiliar, Splice is a massive cloud-based library of royalty-free samples, loops, and presets that is used by producers all over the globe, from bedroom beatmakers to Grammy winners.
It's totally ubiquitous now.
It really is. It has completely democratized music production, but it also carries a bit of a stigma in some circles of the industry of being a shortcut. Bunetta specifically pulled a guitar riff and some drum textures from a sample pack called Power Tools Sample Pack 3, which was created by the producer Oliver.
Right, but he didn't just drag and drop a loop into his software and call it a day, which is the trap a lot of amateur producers fall into.
Because that's how you get homogeny on the radio.
Exactly, everything sounds the same.
Yeah, he used the loop as a scaffolding, he chopped it up, altered the underlying chords, and most importantly, built a completely bespoke, highly active backline underneath it. He layered modern synths over the vintage samples to create a very specific, engineered sonic atmosphere.
Which musicologists have a field day with.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Joe Bennett analyzed the track and pointed out that it's a veritable masterclass in genre blending. It seamlessly merges mainstream pop, funk, synth-pop, and new disco into a single, cohesive package.
New disco. I feel like we've been living in a disco revival for the better part of a decade now. It just keeps mutating.
It absolutely does, and there's a clear lineage here. You can draw a direct line from Daft Punk's Random Access Memories back in 2013, which really kicked the door open for organic, funky bass lines returning to the mainstream.
Oh, complete.
And then that goes right through to Dua Lipa's future nostalgia era, into Doja Cat's pop hits, Lizzo's catalog, and now landing squarely on Espresso. It taps into that post-disco, early 1980s roller rink groove. But the real genius of Espresso from a production standpoint is how it handles the bass.
It's so driving.
It is. In traditional 70s and 80s disco, the mix is often quite airy. But here, the bass line is pushed incredibly forward in the mix. It's heavily compressed and completely drives the rhythm, which forces a physical reaction. You literally cannot listen to it without nodding your head. It's scientifically engineered to deliver a shot of dopamine.
And what's so brilliant to me is that the casual, rapid-fire nature of how the song was created, that 20-minute burst of energy over coffee, perfectly mirrors the actual vibe of the song itself. The creation process translates directly into the effortless stream of consciousness confidence of the lyrics.
It's a perfect match.
Right. Sabrina isn't just giving us a funky beat to dance to. She's serving a very specific, highly articulated persona through her lyrics. And this is where we really want to dig into the central focus of our deep dive today.
Yes, the lyrical analysis here is so rich, and she's been quite open about what that persona represents. When Carpenter spoke to Vogue about the track, she articulated a very specific theme. She explained that the song is fundamentally about seeing your femininity as a superpower.
Embracing the absolute confidence of being that bitch, basically.
Exactly. It's a celebration of a very specific, magnetic, almost weaponized type of self-assurance.
I love how she executes that in the language she uses, because it's not just a generic, oh, I'm great, you love me pop song. It's incredibly specific and metaphor-heavy. Let's look at the chorus, which actually serves as the opening lines of the song. She sings, "Now he's thinking about me every night." Oh, isn't that sweet? I guess so.
Yeah.
Say you can't sleep, baby, I know. That's at me, Espresso.
Right, the core of the whole song.
I really want to break down this central metaphor, because she's not saying she's making this guy a cup of coffee. She's saying she is the espresso.
It's a brilliant metaphorical shift. Think about what espresso actually is on a chemical level. It's a highly concentrated, pressurized, incredibly intense shot of caffeine. By likening herself to the beverage, she's stating that her mere presence is a potent stimulant.
She's a drug, essentially.
Basically, yeah. She's energizing, she's addictive, and she is the literal biological reason this romantic interest cannot close his eyes at night. She's positioned herself as the chemical reaction keeping him awake.
It's such an incredible flex. She's entirely removing his agency in the situation. He's not staying awake because he's actively choosing to. He's staying awake because he's consumed a stimulant he just can't process out of his system.
And she just keeps building on this untouchable dynamic throughout the song. Let's look at the second verse. She sings, "I'm working late because I'm a singer. Oh, he looks so cute wrapped around my finger. My twisted humor make him laugh so often. My honeybee, come and get this pollen."
Okay, there's a ton to unpack in that verse alone. First, the line, "I'm working late because I'm a singer." It's a wonderfully meta self-referential moment.
It breaks the fourth wall a bit.
Yeah, exactly. She's acknowledging her actual reality, her fame, and her demanding schedule. But there's also a double meaning there, right? Because working late can be literal, but it's also the classic excuse someone gives when they're out partying or just deliberately making someone wait for them.
Oh, absolutely. It immediately establishes a skewed power dynamic in the relationship. She's not sitting by the phone waiting for this guy to call. She's busy being a global pop star. He is the one waiting for her, looking so cute wrapped around my finger. It infantilizes him just a little bit in a playful way.
Right, she's sort of patting him on the head. And then you get to the most debated lyric in the verse, "My honeybee, come and get this pollen." It is highly suggestive, obviously.
Very much so. It's unapologetic sexual agency.
And it touches on a bit of a social taboo, or at least a cultural friction point. Because historically, pop music, especially for young female artists, has had to tiptoe around explicit sexual desire or couch it in a very passive language to avoid censorship or intense social criticism.
Oh, the double standards are massive. If a male artist sings about sexual conquest, it's just expected. But female artists have often been penalized for it.
Exactly. But here, the language is so playful and confident that it bypasses the traditional pearl clutching. The crucial point is that it's entirely on her terms. The bee has to come to the flower. The flower isn't going anywhere.
Right, she is the prize, and she knows it. It fits perfectly into this broader cultural movement that critics have dubbed the summer of girly pop. It's unapologetically feminine, deeply confident, and totally in control of the romantic and sexual narrative.
And she leaned into this even more in the remixes. Mark Ronson did a remix of the track called the Working Late Remix, and they added some new lyrics that just double down on this attitude, like the line, "My give-a-fucks are on vacation."
That line is the thesis statement for the entire era. It's a bulletproof persona. She's entirely unbothered. She knows she's desired, and she's not apologizing for the power that gives her.
But what's truly fascinating about the lyrics of Espresso isn't just the psychological confidence of the narrator or the cultural pushback against passive femininity. It's the actual literal grammar of the words she chose.
Oh, yes. The great viral grammar debate of 2024. This is where the pop culture X-ray gets really weird.
It really did. The hook, that's that me espresso, became an instant cultural meme. It was completely ubiquitous. But it was phrased so oddly that major publications and news outlets actually started calling up linguistics experts and college professors to figure out how to officially parse it.
I still find it so incredibly funny that major journalistic institutions were bringing in PhD linguists to dissect a fun pop song.
It's amazing. But what were they actually arguing about? Like, what was the debate?
So journalists spoke to experts like Samantha Allen, Jeffrey Barg, and linguistics professor Ekerot Ruanglertsilp. The entire debate centered on what exactly the phrase "meu espresso" is, grammatically speaking. They were trying to figure out if it's a single noun phrase acting as a bizarre modifier, or they wondered if it was two noun phrases sitting in apposition.
Okay, wait, let's clarify that for a second. Linguists were arguing if it's apposition, which is when you put two nouns side by side, so one identifies the other. Like saying, my friend, the doctor, or my car, the rust bucket.
Precisely. The linguists were debating the core intent. Is she saying, that is that me, which happens to be an espresso, or is she using the pronoun me as an adjective to describe a specific brand or type of espresso?
Me brand espresso.
Exactly. Ultimately, Professor Ruanglertsilp weighed in and pointed out that, strictly speaking, it simply isn't grammatically correct. It defies standard English syntactical rules.
But I'd argue that the wrongness is exactly why it works so incredibly well. I mean, if they had sat in that French studio and said, well, let's make sure this is grammatically pristine, she would have sung, that is my espresso effect, or I am like espresso to you.
Which is terribly boring.
So boring. And if she had sung that, it would have been totally forgettable. The grammatical flexibility, the slight, deliberate wrongness of it is the secret sauce. It creates friction in your brain.
It's a linguistic speed bump.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle your mind trips over. And because you trip over it, it sticks. I always compare it to massive brands creating rule-breaking slogans. When Apple came out with Think Different instead of Think Differently, grammarians completely lost their minds. They wrote op-eds about how Apple was destroying the English language.
But the marketing worked perfectly.
Because the friction made it memorable. Or, to go way back, look at Shakespeare. When standard grammar or vocabulary didn't fit the meter or the emotion he needed, he just invented new words. He bent the language to his will. Nonsense in art can be a highly engineered, deeply effective tool.
That's a very astute comparison. The friction creates the memory. It forces the listener to engage with the lyric rather than just letting it wash over them. And this touches on a really interesting difference between the artist's intended meaning and the public's interpretation.
And also,
well, as several music critics pointed out during this whole debate, Sabrina likely just sang it because it sounded bouncy and funny. It was an off-the-cuff joke in a studio. But the public took it and turned it into this massive, heavily debated linguistic phenomenon.
Right, they projected all this meaning onto it.
Exactly. One writer aptly called the song a blithe pop hit. It's whimsical, it's light, but there's a huge misconception that just because something is joyful, frothy, and fun, it isn't executing complex cognitive hooks. The phrasing is a cognitive hook.
Absolutely. And the linguistic confidence of the lyrics naturally demanded an equally audacious visual aesthetic. Sabrina didn't just tell us she was this confident, magnetic, untouchable force through a grammatically incorrect meme. She needed to show us.
A lyrical shift of this magnitude required a complete visual reinvention to match.
Right, which pulls us directly into the music video, which really cemented the entire phenomenon.
The music video was arguably the tipping point for the whole era. Directed by the legendary Dave Meyers, it wasn't just a promotional clip, it was a critical component of the song's world building. Meyers is known for these incredibly vibrant, narrative-driven videos, and he delivered a masterclass here.
If you watch this video, the first thing that hits you is that it's essentially a short film. They filmed it at Castaic Lake in California, but they stylized it to look like a vintage resort. The video opens with Sabrina driving an old-school wooden speedboat.
Very glamorous.
Very. And there's a classically handsome man leaning in close, aggressively trying to flirt with her, really invading her space. She looks dead into the camera, completely unbothered, her face perfectly blank. She makes a sharp, sudden turn with the steering wheel and purposely dumps the guy straight over the side of the boat into the water.
It's such a great visual.
But the best part is, before he falls, she casually reaches into his jacket and steals his wallet and his solid gold credit card.
It's the literal visualization of her lyric, having someone wrapped around my finger, and then taking total control of the situation to benefit herself.
It sets the tone immediately. And what does she do with this stolen gold card? She doesn't run away. She uses it to fund an obscenely luxurious, pampered beach day for herself and all her girlfriends.
Naturally.
We see them getting back massages from cabana boys, reading books, sunbathing while being fanned with giant palm fronds. Later on, a vintage car full of muscular guys shows up carrying a surfboard. They place the surfboard on the sand and she just dances on it while the guys essentially worship her from below.
The narrative is incredibly fun and perfectly matches the give a fucks are on vacation energy we talked about. But the visual aesthetics and the specific fashion choices are where the video truly elevates the song from a hit into a cultural moment.
Let's talk about the fashion, because it was a huge pivot.
A massive pivot. Before Espresso, Sabrina Carpenter's visual style leaned heavily into Y2K and 1990s nostalgia. If you looked at her previous eras, it was all crop tops, low-rise jeans, chunky highlights, that sort of relatable late 90s mall pop princess look.
Very trendy, very Gen Z.
Right. But the Espresso video marks a very distinct, deliberate change. She completely shifted gears, abandoning the Y2K trend, and moved toward a 1950s and 1960s once upon a time in Hollywood style of glamour.
And you can really see that commitment to the era in the set design. It's so meticulous. When they're on the beach drinking espresso, they aren't holding paper Starbucks cups or modern mugs. They're sipping out of these highly specific conical demitasse cups with tiny vintage spoons.
The attention to detail is wild.
It is. And the coffee is being pulled right there on the sand by a machine that looks exactly like a vintage 1956 Tamiya espresso machine. It just screams high-end, retro luxury.
That attention to detail extends directly into the wardrobe, which is doing a lot of heavy lifting for her new persona. In the span of a 3-minute video, Carpenter cycles through 7 different highly stylized outfits, but 2 of them really stand out and define the aesthetic.
Okay, walk us through them.
First, there's a sky blue one-piece swimsuit adorned with a starfish sparkle detail. She pairs it with a 60s style pink head wrap and heels. What's fascinating here is the designer behind it, Carol A. Studio. Carol A. is a boutique agency that recently gained massive industry cred for doing similar, highly curated retro designs for Margot Robbie's press tour for the Barbie movie.
Oh, I remember that Barbie press tour. The fashion was inescapable. So she's tapping into that same vein of hyper-curated nostalgia.
Exactly. They specialize in capturing that hyper-specific, almost doll-like mid-century vintage glamour.
And what's the second swimsuit?
The other standout piece is a sheer black Norma Kamali swimsuit featuring a sweetheart neckline. For context, Norma Kamali is a legendary fashion designer known for revolutionary architectural shapes. She actually invented the famous sleeping bag coat, and she's celebrated for creating swimwear that is both highly functional and deeply glamorous.
A real fashion heavyweight.
Yes. In the video, this sheer black suit creates a stark visual contrast. The entire beach palette is bright, sunny, beige, and pastel. And then you have Sabrina in this dark, rich, almost coffee-like shade of black. It immediately sets her apart from everyone else in the frame. It's elegant, it's mature, but it's also incredibly bold.
Okay, here's my question, though. I'm looking at the pieces of this puzzle, and there is a massive contradiction staring us in the face.
Which is?
The song itself sounds like a 1980s post-disco track. It's got that heavy, synthesized, new disco, funky bass line. So why on earth would her creative team choose 1950s and 1960s visual aesthetics for a song that sounds like the 1980s? Like, why go with that specific mid-century era instead of neon colors and leg warmers?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question. And it speaks to a broader cultural movement that trend forecasters call reviving the retro. It's not just a random aesthetic choice, it's a direct response to the current socioeconomic climate.
So it's tied to what's happening right now.
Completely. Right now, particularly among Gen Z and younger millennials, who are Carpenter's core demographic, there is a massive crisis of quality in the modern fashion industry. Fast fashion brands like Shein and Zara completely dominate the market. The fabrics are synthetic, mostly polyester, the tailoring is non-existent, garments literally fall apart after 3 washes, and on top of that, there's widespread economic stress and anxiety about the future.
So modern life just feels cheap and stressful, basically.
Exactly. Because of this reality, vintage aesthetics, specifically the highly tailored, structured looks from the 1950s and 60s, have come to represent something deeply comforting. They symbolize durability, high-quality craftsmanship, and a kind of timeless elegance that feels completely lost in today's disposable culture.
Ah, so the 1950s aesthetic is functioning as a form of psychological escapism.
Precisely. By adopting the 1950s and 60s aesthetic, Carpenter isn't just presenting herself as a trendy pop star trying to game the TikTok algorithm in 2024. She's explicitly positioning herself as a timeless Hollywood diva. The Y2K look she used to rock is inherently relatable. It's what you wear to the mall.
Right.
The 1960s Norma Kamali glamour, on the other hand, is inherently aspirational. It's a level of luxury and unbothered grace that feels untouchable. So the 1980s new disco sound is there to make your body move, but the 1960s visuals are there to make you want to be her. It's a dual-pronged attack.
It's brilliant.
And the narrative of the video ends perfectly to cement this newly minted, untouchable persona.
The ending is my absolute favorite part. So the guy she dumped out of the speedboat eventually returns to the beach, and he's brought the police with him. The cops apprehend her, confiscate the stolen gold credit card, and literally shove her into the back of a vintage police car.
Game over, right?
By all cinematic rules, she is lost. She's been caught. But she's sitting in the backseat just smiling and cheerfully waving goodbye to her friends on the beach, totally unfazed. And then the cops try to drive away, but they can't get their vintage police car to start.
It's so fun.
The engine just sputters. And as they are struggling and sweating in the front seat, the instrumental for Sabrina's actual next single, Please, 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 starts playing out of the horn of the police car.
Yep.
She literally wins, even when she loses. She turns her own arrest into a teaser trailer for her next hit.
It's an incredibly savvy piece of marketing, transitioning smoothly to the next album cycle. But thematically, it reinforces the core lyric we discussed earlier. Her give-a-fucks truly are on vacation. Nothing, not a clingy man, not the loss of a gold card, not even the police can disturb her peace or shatter her confidence.
So this perfect storm of elements, the incredibly rapid, caffeinated songwriting session in France, the earworm new disco bass line built over a splice loop, the puzzling grammatical meme of me espresso, and this highly stylized, psychologically escapist retro visual, it didn't just manufacture a hit, it created a cultural monolith. It propelled the track to become the undeniable song of the summer.
And we really should take a moment to define what Song of the Summer actually means in this context, because it's a very distinct, almost mythical phenomenon in the music industry. The Guardian recently published an excellent, in-depth analysis of this specific concept.
What did they find?
Well, historically speaking, the Song of the Summer, or the SOTS, is a unique sphere of the pop ecosystem that completely defies standard industry formulas and marketing budgets.
What do you mean by that?
Okay.
I think the general assumption is that the music industry just manufactures the hits they want us to hear. They pick a song, pay for the radio play, put it on the massive Spotify playlist, and force it down our throats until we like it.
They certainly try to do that, and sometimes they succeed. Major record labels will push massive promotional budgets behind established titans artists like Taylor Swift, Beyoncé, Billie Eilish, or Drake. And while those artists will undoubtedly have massive chart-topping hits, the actual song of the summer is often something that slips in through the back door.
It's a wild card.
Completely. The Guardian notes that historically, the SOTS can be incredibly eclectic and unpredictable. Look at the history. It could be the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations in the 1960s, or wildly, it could be Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill, a song from the 1980s having a massive organic resurgence in 2022 simply because it was featured in a crucial scene of Stranger Things.
Right.
Or it could be something as raw and explicit as Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's WAP in 2020.
So there's a totally unpredictable mix of genres, eras, and tones. There is no one sonic footprint that guarantees a summer hit.
Exactly. The Guardian describes the Song of the Summer as the sound of pop cultural democracy in action. The industry executives cannot manufacture it in a sterile boardroom. The song has to capture the exact, unnameable mood of the public at that exact moment in time. The label can provide the spark, but the public has to provide the oxygen.
The people always decide.
The people decide. And in the summer of 2024, the people overwhelmingly, globally chose Espresso.
I want to geek out over the sheer statistics for a second, because the commercial triumphs of this song are staggering to look at. We mentioned the titans of the industry earlier, the ones with the massive marketing machines. Well, Espresso actually knocked Taylor Swift's highly anticipated Fortnite off the #1 spot on the global Spotify charts.
That is no small feat.
Not at all. It peaked at #3 on their heavily contested U.S. Billboard Hot 100, which gave Sabrina Carpenter her very first top 5 single of her career. It hit #1 on the Billboard Global 200, and it wasn't just an American localized phenomenon. It topped the official charts in the UK and stayed there for 7 weeks.
7 weeks is an eternity in pop music.
It really is. It hit #1 in Australia, Ireland, Iceland, India, Singapore, Malaysia, and Norway. Over in France, where the song was born in that quiet village, it achieved a diamond certification. It is a genuine, undeniable, global conqueror.
And as is often the case, when a song achieves that level of cultural saturation, the formal industry accolades quickly followed the commercial success. She earned her first MTV Video Music Award, winning Song of the Year. And critically, at the 67th Annual Grammy Awards, she was recognized by her peers in the Recording Academy. She was nominated for the prestigious Record of the Year, and she took home 2 Grammy trophies, Best Pop Solo Performance and Best Remixed Recording for that Mark Ronson mix we discussed.
But I'll be honest, while Grammys and chart stats are impressive, that's almost expected when a pop song blows up this big. You expect pop fans to stream a pop song. You expect the Grammys to reward a massive commercial juggernaut. But the praise for Espresso came from some deeply unexpected, almost bizarre places. Did you see who went on the record to name Espresso their absolute favorite song of 2024?
I did, and it is a delightful, completely unexpected contrast. Trent Reznor.
Trent Reznor, the frontman and mastermind of Nine Inch Nails, the pioneer of dark, brooding, aggressive, intense industrial rock, the man who wrote Hurt, which Johnny Cash covered, the guy who scores intense David Fincher thrillers. He named this frothy new disco track about vintage swimsuits, stealing a guy's credit card, and drinking coffee as the best song of the entire year. How does that even compute?
It computes when you look past the genre and look at the architecture. It speaks volumes about the undeniable craftsmanship of the song. Great producers, great songwriters, and great audio engineers, regardless of whether they work in heavy metal, industrial rock, or bubblegum pop, recognize masterful engineering when they hear it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Reznor is known for his meticulous, obsessive attention to sonic detail. He clearly heard the sheer quality beneath the glossy pop surface. He's likely appreciating the isolation of the vocal tracks, the perfect compression on that forward bass line, the clever integration of the splice loops, and the mathematical precision of the hook. A perfectly constructed pop song is a marvel of audio engineering, and Reznor recognizes game.
And it wasn't just rock legends paying attention. The song permeated every single facet of modern culture, leading to some wild, almost inevitable brand synergy. Because she explicitly compared herself to Espresso in the lyrics, the beverage brands saw a golden ticket and jumped all over it.
It was a marketer's absolute dream scenario. Food Beast reported that Carpenter officially collaborated with Absolute Vodka and Kahlua to release a limited edition product called the Short and Sweet Espresso Martini Kit. It wasn't just a bottle of booze, it was a curated experience. It came with the liquors, a custom espresso mix, a vintage-style coupe glass tied with a red ribbon leaning heavily into that 1950s aesthetic we talked about, and an edible cocktail topper shaped exactly like her signature kiss mark.
And then Dunkin' Donuts got involved on the mainstream retail side. They released an iced beverage across their locations called Sabrina's Brown Sugar Shaken Espresso. It's incredible to think about the butterfly effect here. She essentially turned a 20-minute casual jam session in a rural French studio into a multi-tiered, multi-million-dollar lifestyle brand.
Truly wild.
But beyond the drinks, the song absolutely saturated our screens. It showed up in the soundtrack for the DreamWorks animated movie The Bad Guys 2. It was used in a dramatic, unexpected opening sequence of Law & Order, SCU of all things. And perhaps most famously, it was heavily featured in Season 5 of Netflix's Emily in Paris.
Oh, the Emily in Paris integration was particularly elaborate and culturally resonant. The character Mindy Chen performs the song during a coffee-themed event in Rome. The sequence is practically an homage. It mirrors Carpenter's own music video by opening on a speedboat, and eventually features the character performing while standing inside a giant, life-size martini glass.
It's pure camp.
It's a moment of teak camp television, which perfectly suits the song's whimsical, unbothered energy.
But I think the ultimate sign that you have well and truly conquered the zeitgeist is when Saturday Night Live decides to parody you. Ariana Grande was hosting SNL, and she starred in this sketch, where she played a bridesmaid singing a rendition of Espresso at a wedding reception. But the core joke of the sketch was that Grande, who is obviously known as one of the greatest vocalists of her generation, intentionally sang the entire song, aggressively off-key, out of tune, and off-rhythm.
It was a brilliant, highly technical piece of physical and vocal comedy, and it exploded online, generating over 80 million views on TikTok alone. You can only successfully parody something if you are absolutely certain that every single person in the audience is intimately familiar with the source material.
Exactly. The joke just doesn't land otherwise.
The joke only lands if the original song is ubiquitous, and Carpenter's reaction to the parody was perfect. She commented on the Instagram clip, writing, "Very nice and on pitch." She engaged directly with the joke, showing she doesn't take herself or her art too seriously. This kind of self-awareness only endeared her to the public even more, proving again that her give-a-fucks are permanently on vacation.
So if we synthesize all of this, the origin story, the lyrics, the grammar, the fashion, the charts, the parody, what Espresso fundamentally proves is that a blithe pop hit can carry immense, staggering cultural and economic weight. It doesn't have to be a melancholic acoustic ballad or a tortured political think piece to be culturally significant. It evolved from a casual afternoon coffee break in France into an unavoidable global lifestyle aesthetic.
That's the real takeaway here. We often have a bias in cultural criticism. We tend to reserve our highest critical praise and our deepest analytical dives for music that is dense, sorrowful, or overtly serious. We equate sadness with depth.
We really do.
But Espresso serves as a profound reminder that joy, confidence, and playfulness are just as complex to engineer. They require just as much craftsmanship. Crafting a 3-minute song that makes millions of people across the globe feel instantly invincible and unapologetically confident is a monumental artistic achievement. It's vital to our cultural ecosystem.
Which brings me right back to where we started this whole conversation. We talked about how you cannot put a cultural phenomenon through an X-ray machine. You can't just engineer a hit in a lab and force people to love it. But maybe, just maybe, Espresso isn't the thing being X-rayed. Maybe the song is an X-ray of us.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
If a song crafted in 20 minutes can completely hijack the global consciousness, trigger debates among PhD linguists about grammar, shift the entire fashion industry away from Y2K and into 1950s tailoring, and get Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails dancing to a new disco bass line, what does that say about the collective mood we are all secretly harboring right now? Amidst all the heavy, exhausting realities of the modern world, are we all just desperately looking for our next potent, concentrated shot of unapologetic, caffeinated joy?
It's a fascinating question, and definitely one worth considering the next time you inevitably find yourself tapping your foot to that bath line in the checkout line.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Keep listening closely to the world around you. You never know when the next 20-minute spark is going to completely change the culture.